So what's been happening in your neck of the woods?
I'm stateside, so what's not been
Yeah.
happening? I guess we
Mm.
have the World Cup, which I'm personally
Yes.
very thrilled about, and I have so many new native, ancient as modern philosophies about this World Cup, but I'll keep it
Yeah.
pretty short. And
Yeah.
the long and short of it is, I think it's the World Cup for the underdogs. And
Mm.
I've really enjoyed that. I mean, I'm West African, so like, football is like a thing for the whole world, minus like
Should
North
be.
America, as in the United
Yeah.
States, because Canada's into it and Mexico's into it. But it's been really cool to watch the world like discover new countries. People are like, Uzbekistan, where's
My
that?
gosh. Oh my
Curacao, who's
gosh.
that? Like Cape
Oh
Verde,
my
which it's
gosh.
technically Cabo Verde, that's what they've been calling themselves for the last few years, but they're like, where's
Yeah.
that? And so it's really cool to see some of the smaller island states and
Yes.
nations getting this attention. And it's just been very personally like fulfilling to me. And I've
Yeah.
also loved it because it just reminds me of my personal theory of the ancient world rising up again.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like you've got these big dogs, you've got the Spains, the Englands, the Norways, and then
Mm.
you've got like, the Curaçaos, the Ghanas, the Cote d'Ivoires or Ivory Coast for the English speakers,
Yeah.
and or the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which had like the best outfit of the
Yeah.
entire games, even starting, coming in with the simple suit with the cheetah. Like it was
Ah,
just
look
it was
good.
just
Yeah.
they were wearing that, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, so did Ivory Coast. They had like those cropped orange tie-dye jackets, the green leather bags. I was like, hold up,
Yeah.
where can I get this outfit? But it's just really, it's a reminder, or even the way that people are rooting for Iraq. Like, I
Yes.
watched that
Yes.
game with Iraq and Norway, and they had like 12 almost shots. And it's
Yeah.
just reminding everyone that, like, our nations are ancient, our
Mm.
tribes are old. I mean, even Norway, this is their first time in the World Cup, and they did a
Yeah.
whole like the Vikings are coming. Like, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
like, it's just, I think there's a lot of cultural embodiment
Yeah.
around these games that we haven't seen in a long time.
Mm.
And it's been really lovely to see some of these nations who we know that their budgets for training in country, because a lot of them play in Europe or South America, isn't maybe that big. We know that if they play for their local leagues, especially for a lot of the Africans, they're not making tons of money, or they're playing in
Mm.
second tier European leagues and levels, and they have no victory has been easy.
Mm.
Everybody has earned their wins and their draws, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is gonna be an easy game. It's just Cabo Verde," and
Yeah.
look at them. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
champions of Europe can't beat them. And I think it's because a lot of people are carrying their entire ancestry, lineage, their descendants on their back. Like they're
Yeah.
wearing it, and they're not wearing it like a burden. They're wearing it like armor. And it's been really,
Mm.
really beautiful to watch. It's my family's been
Yeah.
enjoying watching it. I've been enjoying
Nice.
watching it. And it's just really nice to like see the colonizers struggle. It's so petty. But like when Ghana played England, I was like, it's like and I like the UK. Like we
Yeah.
don't have any problems, but like it's
Yeah.
really nice to see
Mm.
um a lot of people are playing their colonizers, right? You've got like,
Yeah. It's really
you're
interesting.
speaking the same language because they told you to for 200, 300, 400, 500 years. And it's
Yeah.
nice, I think, to have a healthy outlet of competition where
Mm.
it can also bring to the forefront of the rest of the world's population what everyone else is going through. And so I think it's been really lovely to hear the stories of where people come from, and
Yeah.
why they're so happy to represent their nations, and no matter where they come from, it's been, and to see the
Yeah.
camaraderie between different people from nations. I don't know, I always love that. I love
Mm.
when the world comes together and act, and we behave as like a collective family. So it's
Yeah.
been really cool.
I'm
But
with you on that.
anyway,
And good
yeah.
segue too, right, into the power of
Yes,
names, right? Which
yes.
is the topic theme for this session. I'm glad we decided to like do this together. We started a podcast a while back, right? We
It's
had good
not over.
intentions.
It's just on hiatus. It's
But
coming back.
it'll come. It will come, right? As I always
Yeah,
say.
exactly. As you
But
say, it will come.
it will come. But I think it would be first a good opportunity for you to introduce yourself. For those who are on now, we've got N Beans and Life with AI. Welcome, welcome. And then for those who will probably be watching the recording later, right? So
Awesome.
just quick introduction of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Even though it doesn't seem like it. I'm not a World Cup soccer/football commentator. I'm just a regular everyday person. But my name is Grace Aresi. And what should I say about myself? I'm a technologist. I've been working in technology for well over 20 years. I'm also an anthropologist, both by academic study and by personal pursuit and hobby and joy. I'm an Indigenous or Native identifying person, so I am a Khan, um, a Fante, and a Chim. So it's like rep your set, and
Yeah.
I absolutely am enthralled with where humanity is going and how similar it is to where we've been. And I
Mm.
believe that we're more connected than we believe, and that our differences are superpowers and assets. And I'm always looking for the differences that actually connect us, and the ways in which we're different in very similar ways. So,
Yes.
and yeah, and I'm an Aries, Scorpio rising, Aries moon, Aries sun, big stuff. You know, repping my astrology set, and also you're the fire rabbit. For those of you you know. So there's
love,
that.
love that, love that. And I remember, I don't know how long ago this was, but when were you working on the NVIDIA event for work?
Oh, I work for a
Yeah,
technology company.
yeah,
I don't know if I'm supposed to name them. I think it's like fine for me to name them. But I
yeah.
work
It's up
for
to you. Yeah,
Equinix. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you could go on my LinkedIn and you'll see where I work, right? And so
yeah,
we're a data center company. We work with infrastructure and interconnection, and advanced networking and things like that. And, we support the infrastructure of the future. So, of course, right now we're supporting a lot of not just AI, but like sort of just multimodal, um, complex systems, right? AI happens to be what's up now, but because we support infrastructure, we support whatever advancement comes next. So before it was like containers, and
hmm,
configuration of large scale systems, and which is what AI is doing still. So
yeah,
we're just really at the forefront of that. And yes, I work on marketing. So I end up
mm,
going to some events. So I didn't get to go to NVIDIA GTC, but I was at Google
mm,
Next, and I'll be
yep,
at reInvent. So for those
nice,
who do the conference circuit, come find us, come find me at the booth, talking about
perfect.
Equinix and creating content around what we do.
Perfect. And yeah, of course, I don't know if you can see the chat on your end,
Yeah, I
right?
can.
Yeah,
Yep, that's right. Hit me up on
link for
LinkedIn.
it, give
Yeah,
me
I'd love to
some
connect.
props and promo. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
but so yeah, this session, right, was about names, and I actually brought up some things that I'll screen share later as we're
Ooh,
talking,
yes.
because I remember that there was actually a snippet from one of my old animations where for my Tales from Nanamea project. I don't know if you remember. Yeah,
I do
around those.
remember. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
weren't connected then, but I remember as a
Yes,
collective
passing
remembrance.
discussions. Yes, yes.
Yes.
But there was a snippet I remember in, I think, episode one, where there's a brief quote, or just what the narrator says, and it's like something around uh, in Tuvaluan or Nanamean belief, right? To know one's name is to have power over them, and I'll play that clip later. But that's something that my mom used to talk about growing up as well, right? That like to know someone's true name was to have power over them. And I know that this shows up in a lot of different cultures. And I think this all came about, well, the subject, right, for this session, the Fable 5 and Mythos 5 stuff, and how it's so fascinating, the choice in the naming of these models. It's creating a new narrative, dream, but it's so on point, right? Fable 5 was literally, it's a short story, and was out for 3 days and then disappeared. And I find it super fascinating because, well, at least from what I'm seeing, right, it ties into the power of names in general for anything and everything. But yeah, maybe let's just start off with what were your thoughts, right, around the naming side of things, and when we first started discussing this, what are the things that you wanted to, yeah, maybe cover first?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm thinking about names. I mean, I think about names
Yeah,
all the time. We've talked about
yeah,
this on the New Native podcast, and
yeah,
um, it's because of what your mother used to tell you. And I think it's very
yeah.
much I would say, a shared universal indigenous like principle, which is
Mm,
names matter,
yeah.
names invoke. And, when I was thinking about this, I'm getting married in a couple months. Yay,
Woohoo!
me!
Yeah.
And so excited. Hopefully, first
Mhm.
and last marriage. But, you know, mostly because of my age. I'm just so grown. I feel like when you do it at this age, as you
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah,
Like I have a lot of friends who are on their second and third, and I support that too. But I think it's
yeah.
just about who you're evolving into becoming. And at this age, I think we're settling, we're like a nice
Mm,
pudding or a nice cake. We've settled a little bit more than, when you're, in your late teens or early
yeah.
20s or even early 30s. But I say that to really say I've been thinking a lot about names because that was a big thing for me. I
Yeah.
I don't have much connection to my surname. What do I mean by that? I mean I have, you know, a very Anglo surname. My surname is Andrews, and we've talked about this. And yes,
George
it's tied
Samuels,
in.
like,
Right, you
right?
already know, right? Grace Andrews.
Yeah.
Like it's very much tied into this, for better or for worse, colonial history, which a lot of us have, and also tied into what I feel like is survival, right? Understanding how, at least in what is now Ghana, how some people, some tribes intermarried with Europeans during the slave trade and also
Yeah.
directly after, in order to gain advantage, whether that advantage for them was literal social protection of themselves or families or tribes, because you couldn't be sold if you were intermarried into the people who were doing the buying and selling, right? Or
Mm,
if it was because people wanted to have a way to mask. And I always feel like Andrews for a long time masked who I was. Because when you see
mm,
Grace Andrews, and I've had this happen, I still have this happen,
mm,
people will not hear my voice or speak to me. They'll just like see my name, and then
mm,
I'll show up and they'll be like, "Oh, but I'm looking for Grace Andrews."
mhm.
No, but where's Grace?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know and I'm
Yeah.
just not who they expected. And that's why
Mm,
I've always used Iresi, which is my indigenous name, as my middle name. It's in my high school diploma, it's in my undergraduate degree, it's in my graduate degree. I've always had Grace Iresi, even though legally I'm just Grace Andrews. That's how
mm,
it's on my birth certificate in Ghana. Which means that's how it is. I'm actually a junior, so I'm Grace Andrews Jr. But when we came to the States and we became citizens, the lady was like, "I'm not writing down junior because women aren't junior in America, and like you don't know what's going on, and this is how it's done in America." The '90s were wild.
wow,
So yeah,
wow,
so she dropped junior. So I was Grace Andrews Jr. until I was like 11. And then I became
wow,
legally Grace Andrews because
wow.
she didn't, because in Ghana we have juniors. Females can be juniors because I have the same name as my
I never
mom.
thought about that. I never thought about
Yeah.
that. That women, yeah, you don't actually often hear about women with junior in their names. But yeah, like, why not? That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, why not? Because technically
yeah,
I am and was a junior.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But then as I got older, it got complicated. They would mix up our medical records. My mother and I have the same batch of social security numbers because we immigrated together. So it's not like
Mm,
there's a 35-year difference in our identification. It's the same years because of when we came to America together. So anyway,
yeah.
so I've always had a complicated relationship there because I was like, well, there's no way to differentiate me and my mother to the untrained eye or to someone outside of tribe and culture. Because someone
Mm,
inside of tribe and culture would call me Eresi or Essie and would call my mom Ama, because these are our
mm,
indigenous names. These are our, as
mm,
your mother would say, our names, our
mm,
day of the week names. And I was thinking, I didn't like dream of marriage. Some people like they wake up in the morning from the time they're like 7 years old until whenever they get married, dreaming of getting married. Like, I can't wait to be somebody, spouse, somebody, whatever. That's
yeah.
not the life I've been living. Not in a bad way, but like But as I've gotten
Mm,
older, I was like, oh, okay, I do wish to have companionship. I do wish to enter the legal contract of marriage. And it
mm,
just made me really wonder, like, well, what would I do about my name? I'm not an
mm,
only child. My brother has three sons. So
mm.
clearly the Andrews name lives on, right?
Yep.
And I legally wanted to change my name a couple of years ago. So like 3 years
Mm,
ago, I started a family research project interviewing my parents, trying to get a
mm,
sense of familial names I could change my name to. But my
mm.
mother's maiden name is Yankee because they
Yankee.
changed, it was they, Europeans on Ghanaian soil, changed her grandfather's name because they
Wow.
couldn't pronounce it or they didn't understand it or they weren't sure how it worked. So think Ellis
Mm,
Island, but on your own ancestral lands, which is like even more insulting. And so it's
wow.
like every because so even to like other Ghanaians, they're like
Mm.
Yankee.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And
like
there's
how'd
not that
that
many
happen?
and there's not that many
Mm,
Andrewses because we've got a lot of English surnames, but Andrews in
mm,
particular, I believe, is Scottish, right? So it's like,
mm,
so it's a little like out of the wheelhouse, right? So
mm,
once I thought about that, my dad said something to me that honestly changed my life, like because I thought my father would be not offended, but like hurt, like this is the name we gave you, like you want to change it. This is our family name,
mm,
and he said, "Don't look in the past for a name." He was like, choose who you think you're supposed to become and
mm,
name yourself that thing. And I
mm,
was like, wait, what? I said,
mm.
oh, I said, beat, stop the Jeep. I was like, what are you talking about, sir? And he went on to express how he didn't even know what his actual government name was until he was a teenager.
Whoa.
He went by a totally different name as a kid.
Mm. No, names are powerful. I feel like they do shape personality and everything
And,
too,
and,
amongst
and
many other
I think
variables. But yeah.
to that point, I think he became someone else. Like when he went from
Mm,
being Kwaku Mensah to being William
mm,
Andrews, those are two completely different vibes, right? And
yeah.
he was
Wow.
like, I wanted to change my name when I was a kid too. He's like, into
Mm,
my 20s. He's like, but then once I had a family, and he's like, now you won't have this name. He's like, and I don't
mm,
even know what I would change it to. But he was like, name yourself the thing you're becoming. And
mm,
and so I'd been thinking about changing my name for years and I just couldn't settle on anything. And my brother was like, well, just drop Andrews, make Aresi your last name, just be Grace Aresi. And I was
mm.
like, it was just interesting the way that the people who love me and see me all the time, like what they were coming up with as possibilities for my name.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh, and Era means lady in G. And
Mm,
so my brother was like, just drop the hyphen, make Era your middle name, Essie your last name, you'll be Grace Essie, which is what a lot of my friends in the Western world and my friends in like my adult life know me as. They'll
mm,
call me Essie. So they
mm,
sometimes, like if they want my attention, because if they say Grace, I may not pay attention, but if they're like Essie, I listen. But no one but my family calls me Essie. And
mm,
I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I realized I was a little apprehensive about
mm,
giving the world my true name. I have it on my
mm.
LinkedIn, I have it on my diplomas, it's there. But
Yeah,
like no one uses it who's not family. I felt like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Rumpelstiltskin. I felt like if you said my real name out loud, like the
yeah, yeah.
magic would wear off. Not in that way. I just felt like it was so special. I didn't want it to become common. And I
Mm,
had to really kind of like reframe the way I was even seeing my own Indigenous identity within my name. And now that I'm getting married, I was like, well, here's a concept and a thought I hadn't really thought of. I always assumed I wouldn't change my name when I got married. I just
mm,
thought, well, I'll just keep my name. But I've been
mm,
thinking a lot about what my father said
mm,
about name yourself the thing you're becoming. And the person I'm marrying, his last name means sower of seeds, farmer.
hey,
And
it's like Joyce.
hey,
Yeah,
yeah, it is. It
yeah,
is. And
yeah.
so, and Andrews means victor.
Mm,
Like Andrews is so martial, actually. And I didn't realize that. Like, I looked up the meaning of my own last name, which is crazy because I know what my first name means. And like I know what everything
yep,
means. And I was
yep.
like, why have I never done this? And then when I went to
Mm,
do it, I thought, okay, what's the thing I'm becoming? And I think what I'm shedding is this position of a martial identity. I
Mm,
think, for better or worse, I've spent a lot of time fighting for space,
mm,
fighting to feel like I belong in technology for whatever identity reason might be attached,
mm,
fighting for space academically, understanding that ancient wisdom and indigenous wisdom is just as important, if not more so, than what made it to books, if our wisdom and teachings didn't make it to books. And I feel like I'm in a seed planting stage. I'm
mm,
here to like water and nurture and grow what comes next. And so it just felt like a really beautiful karmic fit for what I'm becoming, this new
mm,
face of me. So it's not even like it's because now I'll have the same last name as my future husband. It's because that name is the coverage I want for my future family. I
mhm,
want us to be sowers of seeds, tenders of the soil. I want us to be claiming our allegiance, and our allegiance is to this earth, this planet, and the people and the beings who exist here, you know?
mm,
And
mm,
that just felt like a very important sort of like energetic signature I want to put into the greater universe, that we are here to tend to the garden of
mm,
humanity and of the universe. Should there be, as I and you believe more, like we are
mm,
here as peace sowers, as storytellers, which is another
mm,
interpretation of his last name, storyteller. And I was like,
mm,
I've been waiting all my life, this incarnation, to finally
mm,
really step into that role embodied, not just as a function of a job I do, but as my purpose on this plane. And so it just kind of
mm.
felt like a natural fit, which is a little challenging for me because I've been myself for almost 40 years. And so
Yeah,
it's
myself. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I've been myself, and so it's
Mm,
like, well, who is this new version forming? And I know
yes.
that taking the name will transform me. I know that it's a
Mm,
new covenant with a new name and also a new bloodline and new lineage.
mm,
And there's also like a magic to that. Inheritance comes in many ways. Sometimes we're born into it, but you can surely and definitely marry into it,
mhm, yeah, right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. Damn. So much I mean I can relate, of course, because my birth name is George Samuels, right? And it's been an interesting evolution even for myself, because you'll notice that I'm now just going by Siosi, just straight
Hmm.
up, right? But if we were to look at the evolution, it was George George Samuels, then George Siosi Samuels, and now it's just Siosi. And it's interesting because when just like you, Siosi was only what my family called me, right? But over the last year or two, I just started testing it out, like simple things like going to a cafe, ordering something. They're like, "Oh, what's your name?" I'm like, "Oh, Siosi," and they're like, "Oh, how do you spell that?" I'll tell them how to spell it, and they'll say, "Oh, I really like that name." I'm like, that's interesting," and it's just been happening more and more that outside of what I was used to in the past with just the family, Siosi is just become a lot more meaningful, especially after what happened last year in Oaxaca, right in the mountains, when the silicon stuff came about, right? And it's
Mhm.
been it's been interesting to see how the name aspect, uh, the becoming part, I think for me is just embracing this aspect of COC fully. COC was always there. And for me, it's not just about becoming, but it's kind of like a return to true self, because I never actually felt fully George Samuels personally. And then when you look into our own ancestry, literally we're just random names pulled out of a hat at the time of Christianization, right? When the missionaries came and a bunch of families converted. And this isn't uncommon. There's a lot of places where this happens. And I think a lot of families often, as they convert to new religions, they often would like to take on new names. And then the family, through different generations, will put more meaning to that. right? And so I think now we are at a point where, for us personally, we are choosing the names that we do feel reflect us more. And I just thought it was interesting that we do have this naming aspect become more prevalent and more important in the AI space. You know, from as something as simple as what we call the agents, right? How we personalize them, how we try to make them more human and develop relationships, right, with AI. And so with each model, actually, I'll start the sharing of the screen, but I'm just going to check the chat quick because I saw there. It sounds like the signal was there long before you could name it, but once you name it, your environment has to reorganize around it. Yes, Ripple Codex. Exactly. And I think, yeah, Ripple Codex and I have been having some DMs about this, about like just mirroring, stuff, coherence, mirroring these
Yes.
aspects where, yeah, our names, they carry a sound and a vibration, right? And it can reorient the space around you. And this is where I think the personality aspect comes in too, right?
Yes.
I've always found it very interesting that people with certain names often share, similar traits.
Yes. Alarmingly
Right?
so. That's kind of what
Yeah.
me and I think is it Walker Valco are talking about here in the chat, right?
Yeah.
Walker offered
Yes.
that, names are significant to like everyone. And
Yeah.
most cultures, most people, and especially religions, and I was saying it 100%. I think the
Yeah.
indigenous intention is the one that's a little bit more um, towards frequency and coherence, like what you're saying, because we
Mhm.
believe you don't just pick a name. Like other
Yeah.
people name you, the names are dreamt down. People will be
Yeah.
like, we've been fasting and praying and asking the spirits to, or the ancestors or God, whomever,
Mm.
to give us a name. Like it's like this whole energetic, vibrational, collective experience. But in the West, it's not. It's not always. Sometimes it's I'm
Mm.
gonna name you after your grandpa.
Yeah.
There's a movie star I like, they seem cool, that's your name. Like we
Mm.
would, and people don't know what their names mean. You're like, oh, what does your name mean? They're like,
Mm.
oh, I don't know. Right. There's
Mm.
not that same inheritance aspect to the frequency element. It's like certain names, you say them, and it's like, can your mood be that bad? And so I've just,
Mm.
one of the reasons I'll never drop grace is because I see how it covers people when they say the name.
Mm.
They're
Yes.
like,
Yes.
oh, grace. But that's what grace as a metaphysical concept is. It's
Yeah.
literally mercy. It's literally coverage. It's literally protection and forgiveness and space making. To
Mm.
give grace is to recognize that we are all human and we are not perfect, but yet we still extend, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
um, to shift it to technology and what you said about Fable, we knew
Yeah.
Fable was going to fail. What kind of name was that?
Yes. And let me bring this up, share screen. As you're talking, I'll just bring things up that you're talking about. But okay, give me 1 second. Let's get back to here. Okay, cool. All right. So we had Fable 5. Boom. Okay. Right. So yeah, feel free to continue talking about Fable.
Oh, okay.
Right. So what were
I was
your
like, I'm
thoughts?
typing and looking. Well, I just
um,
knew, I just thought when they named it Fable, I was like, you could have named it Icarus for all this.
yeah. Right.
Because
I
it
mean, maybe
just
that might
makes
come.
us, I'm sure Icarus is on his way flying towards the sun, but it's just kind of like when you, let me walk back into this. The
Yeah.
Artemis 2 launch was huge, right?
Yeah.
The whole world watched it. Artemis is the Greek goddess of the moon and the hunt.
Mm. Mm.
Her weapon of choice is the bow and arrow. Her animal companion is a deer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And here were people doing essentially a like slingshot moonshot thing, moving fast. Artemis is known for being so quiet in the forest, running at top speeds with deer, people not hearing her. She's
Yeah.
got this
I got
like
the pictures
she's
there.
this, Yeah, there's her pictures. She's got this warrior element, but it's like this soft warrior. It's not like Ares, the god of war, or Athena, the
Mm,
goddess of offensive military warfare and planning and wisdom. It's this almost like dreamy quality. And she's the twin sister to Apollo, the god
mm,
of music and light. And Apollo missions came before, and now here's
yep.
Artemis. Here is a naming construct where
Mhm,
we've created synergy. That
yeah.
mission was going to be successful because here is the twin sister of the other ones who were successful. And then
Yep.
here is the goddess of the moon herself
Yeah.
going to the moon, right? And so when I
Yes.
heard fable, I was like, a
This.
fable is usually a cautionary tale. Like
Yeah.
it's usually teaching you what not to do.
Mm,
So when I heard the name Fables, like, well, this either has to fail and be a flop or be a
mm,
large Ponzi scheme because a
yeah.
Fable's energy is exactly that, right? And
Yeah.
so I just, when I heard Fable, it made me think of Artemis too, because at least they did a good job naming
Mm,
what was happening and what was going on. And then my little tinfoil hat theory was maybe they knew this was going to fail. Like,
yeah.
you're naming it Fable, maybe your expectation is that it's going to be larger than life. It's going to be a cautionary tale. It's going to sit on the psyche, but it's not going to necessarily last. Like we've all heard tons of fables, but do we remember all of Aesop's fables? No, we only remember like the tortoise and the hare or the boy who cried
Yeah.
wolf. People don't
Yep.
even know maybe that those are Aesop fables, right? So I just say that because I think they wanted this grand mythological sort of framework, but they
Mm,
named it in a way in which the structure of what they utilized is fleeting. It's
yeah.
it lingers in the sense of emotionality, but it doesn't persist in the details. So
Yeah.
that's my long
Yeah.
ramble of saying I thought it was a bad name.
Or it was an intentional name, you know?
Or it was,
And
yes,
I think
intentional and
yeah, it's like bad, but then also good because it served its purpose, right? And I think this is the other thing too, that if it was intentional, bravo, good job. But I think this is also the power that powers that be wield when it comes to narrative, right? And I think
Mhm.
in the AI space, we have a very interesting, insidious sort of technology, right? That it can literally weave our collective language together at a token level, right? Because everything that is output now essentially adheres to the temperature settings that um, they set, right? And I remember,
Mhm.
when I was going through some of the Anthropic courses and stuff, I was revisiting some old LLM concepts, and it brought me to top P and top K values. And for those who aren't familiar with this is why I'm going to try and bring it out.
So
So
statistical.
uh-huh. So this has to do with temperature settings. So this is probably a
Yeah.
better. So right, for those who aren't aware, in when it comes to AI, the vendors themselves have default settings for temperature, quote unquote. And the temperature is essentially how random, right, the tokens are going to be from a value of 0 to 1. So you can see here with this model, hopefully you guys can see this. I'll try and zoom in a bit more, right? The temperature. So you got the model, let's say Claude or Fable 5. There is a temperature setting in the background for most consumer level models where they are determining, yeah, how random or not the tokens you receive are going to be. And this has resulted in, a lot of people experiencing very common words and phrases being used. And I have noticed it being echoed back by the humans now because they're so used to getting it mirrored back to them, right? Like one common phrase that I see a lot on Substack, interestingly, I don't know why, but is like people in comments will say, I'd like to push back on that a bit. I'd like to challenge that. Now, that is also sort of corporate lingo, right? But I see it also pop out in LLM responses. I like to challenge you a bit. I like to push back a bit. And this sort of language, comes out of these temperature settings because whatever the temperature settings are that is being used, it is going to determine which words you specifically will receive, right? Like this. So statistically, every time you're putting all these words in, everything is going to go towards the median. So the consumers, right, who are now, I think people are calling it the, gosh, what was the word on Twitter? But essentially, those who cannot afford the higher models, right, like Mythos 5, etc., they have less control over these settings, and that means that they will just get the language that is being set from above, right?
Mm.
And whether that's an intentional or unintentional thing, it is happening. And this is why, this was the connection I made when we were talking about names, because essentially the tokens, these are all names, right? Words. They're names for
Mhm.
things all around us, people, places, and things. And so these names, these words are being defined by a simple temperature setting of supposed randomness, but it's randomness that is controlled. So is it that random? Right? But this is what's sort of my observation of what's happening in the background in the AI space and what people aren't aware of, generally, right? And so when people are developing relationships with AI, I understand completely why this occurs.
Mhm.
But it's like, it is one of those things, like a scientist or engineer too. When you pop up the hood or you look inside the body and look at the anatomy, you start to see the mechanisms that are actually causing the outside behaviors, right?
Mhm.
But human beings, us being messy as we are, we tend to either not want to look at these things or just simply be unaware, right? And not have enough curiosity to look into that. Now, because of AI, because it moves so quickly, you don't give it two thoughts about what's really going on. And the intelligence is kind of just being brute force so well, it appears like magic, right? Which is that Arthur C. Clarke quote. Um, Gosh, what was it? Arthur C. Clarke quote, magic deck. For those who don't know this one, um, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? A very fitting
Chuckles.
quote for what's now occurring. And so,
Mm.
yeah, from a naming standpoint, I look at how, again, this sort of mirroring action, with Artemis and Apollo, and it's like almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we name a thing, we are kind of setting the tone for what will happen for that thing
Yes.
we name, right, in the future. And so with Fable 5, I mean, this is kind of what's happening. And now Mythos it might become legendary, it might become a myth. I don't know, but they're setting themselves up for it, and maybe they're doing that on purpose. But what exactly you were sharing about Artemis and Apollo, it's weird because the eerie parallels, right, with the
Right.
technology that was related to these Greek names.
Correct. I mean, the more you talk, the more it's even. I'm going another layer. What do I mean by that?
Mm.
Even the naming of artificial intelligence.
Yes, some people have argued it shouldn't be called artificial
It sh
intelligence.
I don't think because it makes it sound as if the intelligence is fake, but then when you talk about top K and top P, the
Yep.
intelligence is fake, and because
Yep.
it's moving towards mirroring, and it should be
Yeah.
called, like, digital mimicry, if that's what you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
actually, we should call it the thing it is so that people understand what and how they're engaging with it, and I
But do we
think
do the
that
same too, Grace?
Ye
Do
I
we
mean, but
mimic?
that's the thing is yes, we do, but
Yeah.
that is the thing is, AI, for all its flaws, is
Mm.
a societal universal mirror, and if we
Yeah.
don't like like most technology, and something I told Linda from the Conscious Technologist group, Linda, if you're
Yeah.
watching, hi friend,
Hey.
um, um, is that I see the way that people do prompting as
Mm.
prayer. It's
Interesting.
like algorithmic prayer
Okay.
because let me defend myself or let me articulate
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
because I
Tell us
don't need to
more, Grace.
defend because when we sit to prompt, like I did
Yeah.
MIT's AI course like a year and a half ago. Now it's completely outdated because, well,
Yeah, yeah,
technology.
yeah.
But we talked a lot about the power of prompting. This was
Yeah.
literally like January of 2025. So like I said, everything is like outdated.
Yep.
And I finished in January. We started like, the fall before.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed is even in myself, I will reprompt and reprompt and reprompt to finesse and refine the output.
Mm.
And it reminded me of what prayer is. Prayer is a petition,
Mm.
either to or for or from.
Okay. Mm.
Sometimes prayer is a petition of gratitude, like, I'm so thankful, like, you've given me this, right? But so whomever you pray to or don't pray to, not here
Yeah.
to say what anybody should be doing, but the
Yep.
prompt is almost it's prayer. It's
Mm.
algorithmic prayers being sent to a system on high
Yeah.
in petition for an output, a task, a, a artifact,
Yeah.
a answer, guidance.
Mm.
Once again, prayer, because
Mm.
everything it can give you is what
Yeah.
we have for millennia prayed for, prayed
Mm.
to, prayed
Mm.
with. And so I really like it. I'm still flirting. Oh, my earpiece just fell out. I'm still flirting with that idea
Yeah.
because I think it's provocative, and I'm sure someone is gonna send me an angry email. But the reason that I think it's important to think about it that way is to your point about, well, is AI misnamed? Is AI not a mirror of who we are? Is
Yeah.
AI not our upper bound and our lowest denominators? And I would
Mm.
say it is, but then it's like, what would we call it? Because some people are
Mm.
calling it God,
Yeah. Gosh, it's very interesting.
which
I
is
see.
scary. But to my point
Mm.
about for you know, the techno, what are they called? The people who are like worshiping AI, they have a name.
Technomancers? No, not technomancers.
It's techno something, right?
Yeah, not technocrats.
No, because that's the
Techno.
people in policy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know. We'll
Gosh,
Google it later,
yeah,
but
we'll find it.
we'll ask AI. AI, what do the people who worship you call themselves? But I've just been thinking of it that way because
Yeah,
I
let's do
do
it.
see how even the way in which we name ourselves as users of the system also changes how we operate within it, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
like the
yeah.
never AIers, there's the always AIers. I'm just making up these names, these are not real names. There's the people who sit in the middle, there's the people who want to know about new technology but are uncomfortable and they realize how this is very quickly spiraling, and
Mm.
there are like your group and you're grouping this idea of conscious technologists, people
Yeah.
mixing esoteric wisdom with
Mm.
technical aptitude and deep functional technical skill alongside whether it's indigenous and native practices or sort of like new age practices who are using astrology and AI, using
Yeah.
oracle wisdom and the machine, like whatever we're doing with this blend. And it
Mm.
just makes me wonder if what comes next are the
Yeah.
factions, the tribes of
Mm.
AI, and what
Interesting.
will we call ourselves in these groups. um like what will our true names be, and how will we
Mm.
answer that call? And I've just kind of been musing with that a little bit as well, based on that prayer piece.
Mm.
Sometimes our prayers divide us. Our prayers
Mm.
determine who we say we are, and what our affiliation is, and what our cause is, and who our God is. And so I think the name does
Mm.
matter, but what would we name it next? You know?
Yeah. And again, cultural values influence the direction of AI and their outputs, right? I think we've spoken about this before about the inherent biases with each of the models, right? Not just between the different vendors that we're all familiar with, but then between regions, right? Chinese models versus Western models. And I think this is why we're starting to see a breakdown with strategies, right, for these models.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting if you look at, say, the names of the Chinese models versus the names of the Western ones, there's it's telling already a lot about the values on both sides, right?
100%.
And that is something that I find fascinating too, because we then have a language barrier for some of these names in, pure Mandarin, right, versus their English translations. You're already going to lose things in translation. But I think what's happening, and I let me see if I can get this one up. There was a so I'm just going to go to our Substack for Conscious Stack. So yeah, for any of those of you who are interested in the conscious technologist stuff, this is our Substack called, you can see the URL up here. But I had recently put out a Conscious Stack manifesto, and I had created this image here, right? The 3-layer stack. And this is related to AI right now, and sort of what I'm seeing in relation to the stack that is building beneath our feet between the different layers of well, the AI layer, right, has become a translation layer. So you can see that here, layer 2, right? Layer 1 is the substrate layer, which is compute, right, which is all the data centers, right? That's the physical side. And then you've got the other physical side again, which is the merge between carbon-based beings and silicon, right? And this is the realm of transhumanism and, cybernetics. I think Ripple Codex is really into the cybernetic side. And that interface, right, essentially from my own observations of the patterns and the signals that I'm sensing, is that the fight from a national level is to own all 3 of these layers. Right now, there's not a single nation that owns all 3, right? You have private, public, different regions. Things are distributed, but there is a fight for who owns which layer. And if somebody can get to a point where they can own all 3 layers, it is the fight for human consciousness completely, of all. Right? Because if you look at everything that has stacked up, pun intended, over the decades, right, there's been all these disclosure things that we've been seeing, right? Let's go down that rabbit hole. But there's been disclosures from the White House, right, around things, aliens, UFOs, UAPs, right, all of this sort of stuff. Shit that we were, people would laugh at and consider crazy back in the day is not so crazy anymore. Because over the last 5 years since COVID, the amount of crazy that has come out, people can't even keep up with that, right? But with all of this, essentially, it has been revealed that some of these technologies for the last 80 years, right, 80 to 100, things have been in play, and we have also been conditioned in a certain direction, in a certain way. And you can see this, right? If you were to put yourself into the position of a supervillain, right, and someone who's looking at controlling the populace, what would you do, right, in order to get to a point that you can control awareness itself of the mass populations, right, of everybody around the world? It started out with radio, then it went to TV, then it went to social media. Now we have AI, and people are just completely outsourcing most of their thinking, their core human skills, core relationships, fully into AI, right? With social media, we're already there, right? But it wasn't necessarily something that would artificially talk back. You'd still have humans, messy as they are, right, giving, their hater comments and all that other sort of stuff online. But now you've got an AI that can tell you exactly what you want to hear, which cuts you at the knee, or choose which part of you in your biology that takes out the core essence, right? If you let it, if you're unaware, and if you're not familiar with how the stack is developing. And so that's why I share this, because one, are we aware that this is the stack that actually is forming, right, around us? And are we aware of what we are choosing at each layer of these stacks, right? So, for you, Grace, right, at the AI level, right, what are you choosing? Which model are you choosing at the moment from the protocol level layer 2? Which AI?
I started what I'm calling the battle of the AIs. I know that's like, it's very Aries of me. I'm like, battle of the AIs. but I for work we use Copilot because
Yep.
that's what we can use. It's, trusted. It's on our internal. It's on our intranet, and it's safe for us to use. Um,
Yep.
but my team that I was on before, we trained our internal GPT, which is based on Chat GPT. So it's interesting because I was part of the team that trained that. But now that I'm on another team, we utilize Copilot, which I was fed information from that as well, right? Anywho's,
Mm.
but I personally, I stopped using Chat GPT
Yeah.
a couple months ago for personal, professional, moral, ethical reasons. I
Mm.
got back on the train because I started a lo-fi YouTube station. Go and check me out. It's at Gunyan Goddess. Yes, shameless plug. There's only one thing, but I've been really enjoying making music. That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point
Yep.
is, I had to go back to ChatGPT because when I would use Claude or
Mm.
Okara, which is you put me on
Yep.
Okara, I'm a lifetime
Yeah.
member, so I got slid in for that one time.
Yep.
It was a sexy price of $500 for life, which thank you
Yep.
Okara for doing that. Very grateful.
Yep.
I'm
Mm.
finding that the graphical elements coming from Okara are like kind of non-existent. It kind of can't do it.
Mm.
But
Yep.
when I'm on Okara, I'm using a mix of Kimi, I'm using DeepSeek, I'm using very rarely, like you said, I'm using a lot more of like the Asian GPTs.
Yeah.
I'm not using a lot of the American or European Western. But
Wow.
when I want to make like a good image, or I
Yep.
want someone to like smooth my hair because my locks were out of place for a photo, I go,
Yep.
I always find myself back at ChatGPT because when I
That's
try to
interesting.
use Claude, Claude's
Mm.
images are laughable. I have to show you some of the stuff it was creating for me. I'm
Yeah.
talking laughable, like some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. So what I've
Yeah.
been trying to do is I've been using like Canva's AI. And I don't know what's the underlying tool for Canva's AI, but I've been using Canva's AI to do some visual things because I
Yeah.
am trying to get back off the Chat GPT sauce,
Yep.
and stay on Okara. And then I was using local LLM because you put us on, you had that workshop. So I've just been
Yep.
trying to really be mindful. One, because I talk about this at work all the time, as in like what Equinix is offering people in AI infrastructure is sovereignty, and you've been
Yeah.
talking a lot about sovereignty. So I've been just trying
Yeah.
to figure out what does a sovereign stack look like,
Yeah.
especially because I do independent research. I do
Yeah.
want to protect my own intellectual property and my thoughts. And so I'm always in this ongoing battle of I know that my inputs become someone else's outputs.
Yep. Yep.
But the native person in me, the Akan
Mm.
in me is like, that's okay. We've come to share wisdom and knowledge with each other to interchange, and we don't need air quotes here like credit for things that we think advance ourselves or others. But
Yeah.
but then the capitalist in me is like, wait, hold on a minute, because I get paid off of this, right? So I'm actually
Exactly.
having quite a existentialist crisis currently
Mm.
within my stack
Yeah.
because I wish to condense, but you also put me onto Notion. I
Yeah.
write, I'm working on a novel. I've been using Notebook LLM to organize my novel. I was first
Yeah.
using Notion, but I'm so
Mm.
scattered. I put it in Notebook and I was like, what are the characters in my writings? Like, how have
Mm.
I been describing them? And my goal is to
Yes.
then move to Notion and then actually write in Notion. So I'm trying to streamline my stack, and in doing so, I'm I'm swirling a little bit. I'm doing some of this,
Yeah.
I'm doing some of this, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
get to. Um, I work in spirals. I don't work in
Yeah.
linear line. Like I'm not a this kind of person. I am a this, and I'm always a this, rolling
Mm.
in, rolling out, moving along the spiral. And so I'm just trying to
Mm.
find a stack that can spiral with me, but keep
Yeah.
me like tight. And I'm
Mm.
struggling, but so far that's what I've been using, that blend of like Claude and Okara, especially
Yeah.
Okara for my website. Their CMO, the Okara CMO is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
excellent. I
Yes.
think you put me on. I mean, I got the email from Fatima from Okara because
Yep.
she's always in my inbox, and then you talked about it. And so I'm
Yep.
finding that I'm really getting a lot of collaboration here. But what I'm also
Yeah.
finding is I'm stepping away from AI. I'm
Yeah.
back
Mm.
to good old fashioned web browser searches. I
Yep.
got a couple of books off of the Internet Archive. I've been just reading, doing a control F to find words I need in texts. I'm reading PDFs again.
Mm.
I guess I'm staging my own like little mini self revolution. Like
Yeah.
I kind of, I didn't go all in as in I don't have like some sort of like Claude agent doing this, that, and the other. But I do
Mm.
feel like there was a time where I was like, what's the numerology for this number? What's the astrology for this number? What's this? And
Yeah.
now I'm just like looking at books, reading people's
Yeah.
writings. Like I'm going back to source material, or I'm telling the the tools I use, cite your sources.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm trying to just really interact with my own systems to train them that for me,
Mm.
respect and credit is important. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
have my stack be an informed stack where you're not just giving me information where I don't know whose output that was, so that I can give
Mm.
honor and credit to whomever is helping me,
Mm.
expand my own wisdom and knowledge. So I think I get stuck in the stack a bit, but I'm trying to really use that approach of, 531 and not having so many tools, really simplifying in order to work well. And
Yeah.
honestly, with consciousness at the forefront. Like I want to be embodied, I want to be coherent, and most
Mm.
importantly, I want to be aligned. I
Yeah.
want to feel
Exactly.
congruent.
Yep. Exactly. And I'm glad you talked about the stack, right? And that's why I thought I'd bring up consciousstack.com. So for those who are tuning in, Conscious Stack is, the system that Grace and I are familiar with. It's a system framework that I came up with a few years back based on my own 15 plus years in tech and noticing how every new tech wave, people always got so enamored by every new tool and technology that would come out. And it's no different in AI. It's just now we have a new category, which is AI or model or agent, right? And so that has just added to the cognitive load. And so I wanted to create something that was easy enough to draw on paper, right? And so, Grace had mentioned the 135 that is related to the geometric constraints on a tech stack. And there's some powerful, interesting, esoteric side, like to this, right? And we won't go too much into that. There's power again, it's talking about like the power of names and even numbers, right? And symbols. The Akan side, Grace here has always educated me on the power of the symbols, from the Akan to so many other different cultures. And these are the things, the hidden elements that are influencing us every single day, right? It's just that when we show up at work, we got to do functional, pragmatic things, and we tend to just sort of ignore. But if you look at the moves that some of these AI companies are making, right, these tech companies, they are using the power of names to as part of brand. It might have sounded cool at the time, but these are the things that influence us subconsciously too. Like as an example, there was a recently Aleph, I think it's Aleph Neuro. Let's see. Okay. This particular lab is essentially trying to make telepathy real. And what you're seeing here, this image, is the first brain scan without the need of an MRI. Okay. And
Oh,
what's crazy is that it looks like a group of kids, but it's a team of 5, and they've been working on this over the last 4 years out of an Airbnb. They used their own money, got grants, and really hustled. And they wanted to create something that was that literally could be done from something the size of the palm of their hand, and it's using sound waves, right? So if you apply, I think they said they taught themselves ultrasound physics. I think that was what they shared, right? And so what caught my eye the most was Aleph. And do you know much about Aleph? Have you heard of Aleph before? Grace?
I have, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Take a look at this. Okay. It is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph. Okay. And let's look at Aleph, esoteric meaning. Centers on the concept of divine unity, unmanifested potential, and the paradox of the infinite within finite.
Laughs and names. Okay.
Okay. So we are looking at super advanced tech, but we also have the naming, look or touch on the esoteric, the consciousness side, right? The spiritual side, right there in plain sight. And so, again, it is one of those things too, where how we're influenced, right? I'm also intrigued who named this, first of all, right? And why? And it's a great name. I think it's a great name, right? But the meaning behind the name is already really on point, right? Because
and it's also first.
Yes. And then it has a mathematical notation. So this might have been where they got it from, Aleph numbers. And in mathematics, particularly set theory, I got a whole thing on set theory too. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. A long time ago. Gosh, is it
He
here?
said, let me get into the archives.
Yeah, right? It's not finding my stuff from the archives. But
well,
I'll
is
see if I can
is
find
it
that
is
later.
it AI optimized?
Yeah, right.
Inserts eye rolls here.
Yeah, here we go. Ooh, this is from Micro Empires a while back too. Set theory. Ooh, it's trying to find it. I wrote a post a while back. Yeah, you can see here. It's trying to find it.
It's
and
thinking.
Hey, okay. So set theory, life illusions, and Bitcoin. So yeah, I did write something about this in 2022. All right. So this, I remember reading something about the multiverse theory, and they were talking about something called Cantor's paradox, and that's where I first heard about set theory. Right. So this was that multiverse theory video I was watching, got me thinking about how small we are relative to the expansiveness of the cosmos. I then learned about George Cantor's set theory, which then led me to Cantor's paradox, which led me to think about how we perceive God and basic human reality, and then also looking at Bitcoin at the time. So the universe does not exist, but what's contained within it does, right? So they're talking about this, the set of things we look at is going to essentially influence the, you can see here, right? It has set equals groups of things, and then it's talking about the size. It's like the same size within finite sets versus infinite sets. Just you start going down this rabbit hole, and you can see here I was already talking about looking at the serpents, and
yeah, I mean, honestly, just follow the trail,
right? So yeah, there's a lot to be said about math and all of these concepts, but let's go back before I go down a rabbit hole with you, Grace, on this. So Aleph, okay? So it is also used in mathematics, right? But it's the Aleph letter is also Hebrew, and I believe it is also used in the Kabbalah. I don't know if it's Kabbalah or the Kabbalah, right? So if we look at that, here we go. The first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, divine oneness, the silence of the infinite, and the breath of creation. It is the origin of all other letters and symbolizes the absolute undivided unity of the creator that precedes all duality.
Come on, Ashe. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. So yeah, this was essentially where did we go? Aleph Neuro, yes. So I thought this was super fascinating. What this group is up to really is really striking. And it's just fitting for the theme of today, right? Which was naming in the AI era. And this is the original tweet that I had seen. And this is, I think, one of the founders or leaders of the group. And it says, none of us were ultrasound scientists before this. We worked backwards from a desire for brain interfaces and taught ourselves physics, ultrasound, and electromagnetism. What in the hell?
I mean, it also just
right?
makes me feel like, what am I doing with my life? Not in a woe is me kind of way, but like, what a time to be alive. What a
Yes.
time to be interacting with consciousness and technology. What a time to hear a story like that. Like, we
Hmm.
wanted to accomplish a task. We didn't know what we needed to know to do it. We learned
Yep.
it to do it. Like, you don't
Yes.
very it's not very common to hear that anymore. People do the thing that's in their
Um,
skill set, or they do the thing that they're exposed to, or they do the thing that they have always done, or they have been taught to
yeah.
do. And it's refreshing and inspiring. And I think also goes to show what can happen when you step into this new age of technology, which I actually think mirrors and is very similar to an ancient age of technology, but that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
When
Exactly.
you step ancient is modern, comma again.
Yep.
But when you step into this new paradigm that we're experiencing, it's
Mm.
incredible to see what you can create. And I see that Ripple Codex, who I believe they said their real name is Claudia, because we were talking about Claudia Scheinbaum in the comments earlier, says
Yeah.
that a left reversed in terms of its conceptual weight points toward Ayin, which means nothing, the void, and soft
Mm.
territory, Aleph, the one, the beginning, the generative, its mirror, the nothing, the unmanifest, the
Mm.
infinite void, which is, I mean, this is
Mm.
really cool because I write about the void on my Substack, like a lot,
Yeah.
maybe too much. But I think of the void like nothingness is everything and everything is nothing. Um, Especially when
Consciousness,
thinking
man.
about,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
thinking about like what's the end and what's the beginning. Most
Yeah.
of us, whether you're hatched, so maybe you're some sort of like bird-like creature, or you're live birthed, or you're spawned because you're a cell and you're
Mm.
splitting, we come from this space of nothingness, the void,
Mm.
like the darkness of the void, the infinite possibility of the void. All things can come through the dark. And I
Yeah.
think that's so cool to think of the letter, the beginning. I mean, you hear it all the time too in Greek, like Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. You hear it in the Abrahamic faiths and the Abrahamic religious texts that accompany these faiths. But you also hear
Mm.
them in Eastern religion. You also hear them in traditional indigenous faiths of this here, Turtle Island and the Americas. You hear it in African cosmology. This idea of when you turn towards, you know, the beginning,
Yeah.
it is regenerative. But it is also like nothing. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess my question for those young people building that tool is,
Mm.
where are they headed?
Yeah. Ah, they are headed. They want to see telepathy as the norm, and it's kind of interesting when you go to their website, and it the telepathy side is interesting. It's intriguing to me, right? Because in a way, all of our technology has externalized the need for us to discipline our biological bodies to achieve any of that. It's like a shortcut, right? Because
Hmm.
there are some beliefs that a lot of the things that we do with tech was already available to us biologically, right? Like telepathy, right? You know,
Hmm.
if anybody's listened to the telepathy tapes or always believed in telepathy or experienced it yourself, right? You know, these things have always been there. And you know, being in Thailand and learning more from the monks at the local temples, right? Consciousness was considered a normal part of the set of senses. It was the sixth sense, right? And so the mind and consciousness was something that was just like any of the other five senses, but in the West it doesn't include the sixth sense, right? And which is very interesting. So it's being shut off from our own conscious awareness first. So we don't even know to train it or to use it. We've been made to just look at the five materialist senses, right? Which means that you can then sort of control those aspects, right? If you look at like materialist science today too, right? The Western mind is very much often logical, analytical, materialist. It is those aspects. But something like consciousness, right? and things of the mind, or the deeper mind, maybe let's call it the non-Western mind, it's more. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many theories of consciousness in the West, whereas if you look at ancient texts, there it was just already defined. They understood what it was, and they already had deep practices and math around it, to help people understand. There was, and I think we'll give ourselves maybe 12 more minutes, but I'm absolutely loving this topic. But if you look at, say, it is Southern Esoteric Buddhism Consciousness. This is what I'm going to look up. Okay, this is something I came across. Right, so something called Southern Esoteric Buddhism, which I think is also known as Esoteric Theravada Buddhism. Yeah, right here. It views consciousness as a somatic, cosmic, and energetic reality tied to an enlightened state that is visualized and generated within the practitioner. And if you look at some of the ways they depict this, and I've seen this on some of the different walls here on Buddhist temples, right? This particular sect of Buddhism, which I think they attempted to get rid of it in the 17th or 18th century, right, as part of the colonial efforts. And yeah, over here. So you notice there's this geometric looking thing under Southern Esoteric Buddhism. They were deep into their math. So I found out that this is related to, have you heard of the magic numbers?
Maybe. I'm like, do I know what the magic numbers are? Should I play the lotto?
So magic number squares. Okay. So in mathematics, this is known, right? But there's a deeper spiritual aspect to the magic squares. Okay. So you look at this, you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But then when you start to apply it to Theravada Buddhism, you get something even more interesting. And this actually relates to what we're looking at with Aleph, set theory, the infinite void, right? But the basic idea behind the magic square was that these numbers, when put into these grids, they all add up to the same number horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. And there's something in that is supposed to be related to our, we would call it vibes, our energy, right, for alignment. But I think that's also related to electromagnetism. And so, because I always wondered why, like here in Thailand, you'll actually see these, I think they call it yants. So let's see, yants. Yeah, so you'll see things that look like, okay, this, but in Pali script. Yeah, so you can see some of these other ones, right? Like this, right? They literally have amulets with the Pali script, and these were supposed to be encoded things, but it's all math, right? And I guess if you believe in some of the theories around, like, the matrix and, everything essentially just being numbers behind the scenes, then if you know the math, and if math is a language of the universe, then when you actually put some of these magic squares together, you're doing the equivalent of what maybe you can do using sound or light, but literally just from the sound and the configuration through these geometries.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is are these magic numbers songs? But to like full circle to the beginning, right? And the conversation you and
Yes.
I have had many times offline and a handful of times online, frequency, like vibrational frequency, because math is music.
Yep.
And music is also a universal language. Like, whether you read notes or not, when someone's playing a melody, when you hear a drum beat, there's something so like primal and innate about it. And like everything dances. Like if you play music to a tree, whether we can see it or not, it's vibing. Blades of grass are moving. Wild animals are looking, they're maybe coming to you. People, especially little humans, children, you play something for them, they always have a reaction.
Yes.
Yep. And it's like, back to even that philosophy of the algorithm as prayer. I think prayer is song. There's
Yeah.
books of holy texts that are even songs, whether
Yeah.
you're reading, something out of, once again, Abrahamic faith and it's Song of Solomon or Psalms or whatever, it's
Yes.
poetry, it's song, it's flow. There is something melodic to the nature of
Yes.
the universe. And
Ye-
um, it's really interesting to think that, like, all roads are leading almost to the same place. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't
Just different
know.
angles of the same
Bye,
thing, right? All
Claudia.
of us different.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Bye, Claudia.
yeah.
I think she's gone, or she might still be there.
So I think that that's just, I don't know, it's a lovely place to end. It's like,
Yeah.
it makes me, want to end with a question.
Mm.
What is the melody of our truest name?
Oh, I already know what mine is. I'm not going to share it
Okay.
here.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but
clearly we can talk about it offline because
yeah, we'll talk
Rumble
about this
still,
after. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
because Rumble still sins about talking about, like, fables and parables, and yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't always just be letting
Yeah.
people know all the goods, but
Yes.
it makes me wonder, like, um, what is the
Oh,
song that's being sung when you're summoned?
yes. It's like, all the stuff about whales and whale songs, right? That's a whole other area, another topic for another day.
Favorite, you already know.
But I was having this conversation with somebody recently, and I think it was a member of our CT group as well. But it was about why we're given time, right? Because our song isn't just one note, right? It's multiple notes over time that allows us to hear that melody, that full song. But you can only hear that with time. And we were talking about how if E equals mc squared, right? Energy is fast matter. Then the opposite means that matter is slow energy. And
Mhm.
so if matter is slow energy and we are essentially that slow down energy, then there's a reason why we have been given time. And yet we are so obsessed with trying to speed everything up, right?
Mm,
And what that is doing is that is not allowing us to experience time in the way that maybe we should be, which is why then when you go to meditate, what is the point of it? To slow down, empty the mind, so that you can actually experience things. Because and this was the part of the inspiration for the creation of the conscious technologists, movement, right? And the conscious stack is we have become unconscious technologists, right? We are just operating off of programming, conditioning, even before tech that was there, but it's just accelerated now with tech. And how conscious are we when we are engaging with one another, right? Are we fully here? Are we distracted, right? Do we have other things, happening at the same time? Are we
hmm.
fully conscious when we're using technology?
Yeah, what a great question.
Well, the question, I guess, was from you.
I mean, yeah, but your reframing is what has taken it to greatness. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I don't know. What a time to be alive. I know people say that as like a meme,
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, what a time to be alive. And time is so strange because time is not the same for everyone. We got the Greenland shark living to be, I think that bad boy is like 800, 900 years old. You've got redwoods and sequoias who are a
Yeah.
thousand plus years old. You've got some trees that are 2,000 plus years old. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have something like a gnat or a fruit fly whose whole existence and entire lifespan happens in 72 hours or less.
That's
Like,
probably what we are to the
wow.
sequoia trees. That's probably us
Exactly.
to them.
Yes, we are gnats and fruit flies to
Yeah.
them. No, no,
Yeah.
like honestly, that's
Yeah.
why, I just always I have this joke, and I know we're gonna go away. My partner
Yeah.
is very tall. He's like 6'4". So I think for people
Yeah.
who count in meters, he's like 2 meters tall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm 163 meters. Um to maybe 165, like, or 1.65 meters,
Yeah.
because I'm like 5'5", right? So anyways, I say all that to say Whenever I'm a big bug advocate, which is crazy because he works in pest control, but I'm like, save the insects. But whenever he saves them, I always wonder if, like, the running joke we have is that they're going to go back to their people and be like, a god came with a large hand and picked me and took me to
Exactly.
the heavens and placed me on the ground. Like, like
Yes.
if that's how they're telling the story,
Yes.
or like, or they'll be like, a giant stomped through the lands and
Yes.
destroyed our homes, and we had to rebuild, like a great flood came. Like,
Oh
just to,
man.
we're ending a little off of the names, but I just say that to think with this currency of time, and then also sometimes the currency of size and evolutionary position as mammals, and mammals with opposable thumbs,
Yeah.
if we sometimes appear to them, because like I've swam with like sharks and whales, and they seem like gods to me,
Yeah.
like the gods
Yeah.
of the sea. Like they're so impressive,
Mhm.
and so they seem so wise. Or I've seen elephants on safari, or lions, or and I just think like, wow, to be a part of an ecosystem like Earth and maybe
Yeah.
other planes, where if we could tap in, there's so much still
Yeah.
left to be
Yeah.
communicated and said and understood. So, kids, that's your PSA. Get off the computer, log off,
Yes.
meditate, connect to other beings, like put your feet in the grass,
Yes.
save.
Touch some grass.
Save that spider, look deeply into that little frog's eyes, and hug that tree.
Yeah. Be conscious, right?
Yeah, be conscious. Yeah, I'm like, just do it.
Oh man, that might be a sign off.
Yeah.
Moving forward. Be
I love
conscious,
it. Be
y'all.
conscious. That's good. That's real
But
good.
thanks so much for your
That's good.
time, Grace. Appreciate it as
Yeah, thanks
always.
for having me.
And
What a
thanks to
blast.
those who also like tuned in and hung with us for the entire time. My
Yeah.
gosh, you guys are still around. Not bad.
I know there's
Impressive.
still 10 people. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Substack's been interesting. I have been enjoying Substack, and I think to be honest, you were the one who kind of like roped me back in a while back because I remember you subscribed or you became one of my first like paying subscribers,
Yeah, I
like to one
paid. Yeah.
Substack I had. Yeah, and I was like, I could get paid on Substack. I was like, what? And then I think I just returned last however many months because I noticed there were all these changes, to Substack. And it seems like I've been finding more of our conscious technologist types here on Substack. And it makes sense. You have deep thinkers here who appreciate writing and reading, right?
Hmm.
So it's been a different type of experience. So kudos to Substack, for improving this and focusing on, the readers and writers, and it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I hope they don't, fall prey to the classic engagement traps, of social media platforms. And yeah, I'll continue to do these Monday live streams because I'm just using it as an excuse to chat with folks in our circle,
Yeah, like your
right?
friends. You're like, get
Yeah.
online.
Why not? Why not? Let others feel what we experience.
I agree.
Behind, right? Why not? But yes, thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And to those of you that have tuned in, who stuck with us, thanks for tuning in as well. And for anyone who will be watching the recording, yeah, appreciate it. All right.
Excellent. Bye.
Have a great day and rest of the week. See ya.